Here are the terms that are possible to be on the midterm exam. Virtue ethics, which applies to both Aristotle and Mencius. And then from Aristotle, function argument and eudaimonia, which remember means happiness. Aristotle's theory of the doctrine of the mean. Virtue understood as a characteristic and understood as a mean. Habituation, Aristotle's practical advice, and practical wisdom. And from Mencius, you'll want to know Mencius's four moral senses and their cultivated states. Relatedly, you'll want to understand what he means by sprouts, Mencius's concept of mental cultivation, and Mencius's analogies and metaphors. So remember from the text that Mencius makes a number of analogies or metaphors to demonstrate his theory of human nature and his theory of moral goodness. Those analogies and metaphors are the willow and bulls analogy, the harvest and agricultural metaphor, and the ox mountain metaphor. Now it's time to answer some reflection questions on Aristotle's arguments and concepts related to his moral theory. So I want you to take the time to respond to the following two questions and then upload your responses to a corresponding journal entry on Blackboard. Question 1. Do you agree that we need to develop moral virtue in order to be happy? And I want you to think in terms of Aristotle's notion of eudaimonia. So thinking of happiness as an overall state of one's life, as living a good life, not as a momentary mood of being happy. Or to ask it another way, do you think that someone who is unkind, uncaring, and generally selfish can truly be happy? Question 2. How does the concept of moral habituation strike you? Do you think the analogy between learning to be morally excellent and learning to be excellent at some craft is a good analogy? Why or why not? And now I'm going to ask you to think back to last week and respond to some reflection questions on Mencius's theory. So I remind you that the slides are up on Blackboard for the entire PowerPoint covering both Mencius and Aristotle, as well as the recording of last week's class where I went over the slides on Mencius, as well as reviewing the video, the YouTube video on Mencius's moral theory. So review some of that stuff, or don't if you feel like you got it under lock and key for yourself. But I want you to answer the following two questions and upload your responses to the corresponding journal entry on Blackboard. 1. Do you agree with Mencius that we are all born with innate moral sprouts? Why or why not? Does the agricultural metaphor of cultivation capture the process by which we become virtuous? How so? Or what does it leave out? Question 2. What do you think of the role of concentration or focus in our moral cultivation? Explain your answer, please.